Hello, my name's Tim, and this is Mooroolbark Terrace. The terrace first opened in 1982, and it became the hub of the rapidly growing Mooroolbark area. From community events to celebrity appearances and even prime ministers, the place was a bustling hub of a rapidly growing suburb. Today, it is mostly empty but not completely abandoned, a rare time capsule into an era that's long past. Walking up the ramp from the main street to the centre's main entrance, you walk under an arch that contains the signs of all the shops that used to be in here. Paint peeling off the signs reveals even earlier tenants. Upon entering the terrace, we can see the mostly untouched interior. The cream and blue colour scheme did come later, but the floors and ceilings are the original design. The original lineup of tenants included half-case supermarket and liquor store, a treasureway, a kiosk that was originally a donut shop before becoming a jeweller's, Permanent Building Society, which later became Resi Statewide before it was taken over by Bank of Melbourne. There was a discount cosmetic store, and a Westpac bank, originally known as Bank of New South Wales. There was a Tats Lotto agency and Leo's Menswear, a shop fondly remembered by many locals who shopped here. There was also Red Apple Footwear, Braidner Sporting Goods, and a fruit and vegetable shop, a hairdresser's named Fantastic Planet, and Bojangles Music, which went through many name changes before ultimately becoming CD Haven, Lucene Boutique, Ted's Butcher, and Replace-A-Film, which was a camera shop at the rear of the centre. One of the shops still open in the centre is Terrace Jewellers. Brett Clark, who runs Terrace Jewellers, was an invaluable source of information for making this video. You should definitely check out his store if you're in the area and you need some custom jewellery done. This is a close-up shot of what the signs look like, and you can see the older stores under the newer stores as the paint peels away. Despite being abandoned for several years, the supermarket space is open for lease. The shops here were once the Treasureway. The Treasureway chain was a large chain of discount stores in the 1970s and 1980s. They had several shops all across Melbourne and other parts of Australia. Most of the chain had disappeared by the late 1980s, and this store was no exception. It was subdivided into 3 smaller stores, which is what you're seeing here. There are label scars for the Treasureway on the exterior of the building, which you'll see later in this video. This kiosk was actually Brett's shop for many years before he moved into the more permanent shop that he occupies now. When it was a donut shop, this kiosk once caught on fire and set the centre's sprinkler system off, forcing it to close for a time. As part of my research on the centre, I asked in a local Facebook group about the terrace. I got a lot of interesting stories and feedback, and one story came through that was particularly amusing, involving the popular children's television icon Humphrey B. Bear. Brett confirmed the story, and told me that the day Humphrey B. Bear was in the centre was the day the centre was at its most packed. So full was it that it wasn't actually possible for people to get into the shops, so while it was a great event for the centre itself, it didn't exactly do the shopkeepers any favours. This is the supermarket. After it was a half-case warehouse, it transformed into a tucker bag, which was another Australian chain of supermarkets in the 1980s. In the 1990s it became an IGA festival, before taking on IGA's generic brand and just becoming KFL Mooroolbark. The supermarket closed down about 4 years ago, but you can still see fittings and other things inside. On the left side you can see the bottle shop. The sign above the Treasured Babies program here, out in the aisle of the mall there, was the original Treasureway sign. There's no evidence of the Treasureway here, but I have a photograph that shows it in the background. Next door you can see Stay Tuned Electronics. Stay Tuned has been part of Mooroolbark for many decades at this point, and its shop windows are full of retro electronics and other things. Network Video was what remained of Mooroolbark's video store after it moved from its location next to Coles across the street. This is the floor of the Mooroolbark Terrace. While it's showing its age these days, it hasn't changed since the centre was first built and still has that classic early 80s design. A local community arts group occupies some space in the centre, and these paintings were put up by them. This is another closer view of the roof. You can see the panelling here, and you can tell what it must have looked like when the centre first opened. The skylights would have let in a lot more natural light back then, but over time they've aged and faded, and now they let in a sort of dull yellowish light that gives the whole centre a brown and gold hue. The main skylight, here in the middle, stops the centre from being dull and dark inside. It actually does help brighten the place up, despite everything else around it. This is a close-up view of the retro electronics in the Stay Tuned Electrics shop window. The door to this service corridor is usually closed, and a sign says that it's for staff use only. It was originally the public toilet, and I was able to get this shot only because a staff member at one of the other shops here had opened it to use the facilities. On the right side of this corridor, there's another corridor that branches off around behind the old Leo's menswear space and towards the supermarket. On the right here you can see the antique shop. This store takes up 3 spaces within the centre. As we walk past Ocean Massage, note the red notice on the door that shows that the place was closed for legal reasons. Bendigo Bank was originally where the Westpac Bank was, and there was a garden centre down the end here. The garden centre actually has an exterior entrance around the side of the building as well. A large roller door there allowed vehicular access so that people buying large items could simply drive up and take them. This is the antique shop's main store. When I was filming this, Terry from Terry's Meats noticed me and he came out and had a chat to me as I was filming the backside of the shopping centre. He told me on the day of filming that he was 2 weeks away from closing. Subsequently, Terry's Meats has indeed closed. Originally, this store was a chicken stop. You can see here the remnants of a sign for a $2 discount store inside the centre. This is the garden centre entrance, and the door to the left of the main roller door there was the entrance to that internal corridor that I showed earlier. This is the loading bay for the supermarket. Like the rest of the supermarket, it's been left mostly untouched since the place closed. I was told by Brett that the owners of the supermarket still own that space. One of the big problems with Mooroolbark Terrace is its strata title ownership scheme. It may seem surprising for such an empty centre to have such a full car park, but the reason for this is the fact that Mooroolbark train station is not very far from here, and a lot of people will park in this car park and then walk to the railway station to commute to work each day. This entrance, hidden behind a locked cyclone fence, leads down into the supermarket area. This door also led into the supermarket, and you can probably tell by the sign above it saying entrance to supermarket that it was actually open to the public most of the time while the supermarket was open. This is the rear entrance of the terrace, and these doors make a hell of a racket when they close. A lot of the signage for older shops and even more recent shops hasn't been taken down, and it's still visible all over the building. These are the rear entrances to the shops on the northern side of the shopping centre. This door on the right is the rear entrance to the tattoo parlour, but it used to be a video game shop. The owner of the shop would actually hold LANs in the back room, and I attended many of these LANs, and they were always good fun. Here's the obligatory no smoking sign along the back wall of what is the childcare centre. The childcare centre itself was a late requirement by the local council. I suspect it may have been added to the design at the very last minute because it looks like it's just been bolted onto the outside of the shopping centre. The side entrance comes in from Hookey Park, Mooroolbark's largest and most important park. The park itself also encompasses a library, a war memorial, and a large gazebo. Microbeat made 8-bit computers back in the 1980s, and they proudly sold themselves on the fact that they were Australia's only 8-bit computer manufacturer. Down this wall, you can still see where the Treasureway sign originally was. The Treasureway sign is visible in this shot, but it might be hard to discern. The Mooroolbark Terrace sign on the front of the centre was likely originally red, and was repainted blue around the time the entire blue and cream colour scheme was applied to the centre. One of the things trapping this centre in the past is the fact that Coles actually owns a number of shops in the centre. This means that they can prevent it from being demolished or redeveloped. Coles are doing this because the plans for those redevelopments would have seen their major rival, Woolworths, move into the space left behind by the centre. While there may still be plans to get rid of Mooroolbark Terrace, for as long as Coles holds ownership over some of the shops in the terrace, those plans will never go ahead, and the terrace will continue to look like it does today. While there are larger shopping centres nearby, such as Chirnside Park and Eastland, the terrace gave Mooroolbark residents their own space to live and work. It provided a hub for the community and was likely a popular meeting place for people growing up or just living in the area during the 1980s and 1990s, a period when Mooroolbark was experiencing significant growth. I'd like to thank you all for watching this video on Mooroolbark Terrace. If you enjoyed what you saw, feel free to like, subscribe and share this video around. I intend to make more videos about places in Melbourne that I think are interesting, and I hope you can stay around to watch them.